highly cash generative and profitable. So now, in terms of the roadmap, we're looking at opening the MotorCity, the regional mall in Tzaneen in Q1 2023. Like I was saying earlier, we've been informed by the commercial developer that, you know, the mall in the Waterberg district will be ready sooner than this one in Tzaneen. So 2023, it's for Va Nkuna Regional Mall. The one in Waterberg will be ready in about a year. So I just wanted to emphasize that. So we're highlighting here the milestones that we still need to achieve. The key one is securing the funding. As we all know, if you don't have money, no one takes you seriously. That is why we are here tonight. You know, this meeting, that is why it's important. We're trying to ensure that, you know, we secure some funding commitments so that, you know, we can move quicker with regards to the other milestones. In conclusion, this is we see great potential here, and it would be an opportunity for those who choose to participate to also make a contribution, you know, to the country. You are bringing jobs into, you know, deprived areas. You look at the returns. We're looking at very, you know, mind-blowing IRR numbers. We're looking at the EBITDA to sales, very impressive. You look at return on investment, and also with money back, assuming that a person puts in 20 million rands, as an example. So your money back, you know, it's 5.4 times, which is almost unheard of. So I'm going to pause here. I've covered most of the things. I'm also looking at the clock. You know, in my other life, I'm a preacher, so I talk too much. I don't want Zoom to cut us, but I've covered the gist of the business concept. So I'll hand over to you, Tristan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Now we'll be having can you just stop sharing your screen, please? I just need to share my screen for Chris Hart, because you'll be speaking about how you can invest your taxes into this. Chris?
Right, yes, good evening. Thank you very much. And I think we start off by saying we're going to prosper through our taxes. And that sounds like a strange thing, because usually taxes sort of leave us a little bit poorer as the government takes money from us that we've earned. But we're going to actually see how we can get these taxes back. So if we can go to the next slide. The first thing as a departure point, that we are a financial services provider, and that's why we start with a disclaimer that this is an information session, not an advice session, and it's important that one understands it in that context. But it is important to know that we're a financial services provider. We are regulated by the Financial Services Conduct Authority, FSCA, and also SARS, because the Section 12J is a SARS initiative, as it were. So if we're going onto the slides, the actual presentation as such, that's the next slide. What I want to actually try and deal with is to say, what is Section 12J? How does it work? And then I want to actually go into, you know, how we approach investing at impact investment. And then we're going to go through the actual structured Section 12J approach later. So if we can go to the next slide, the first thing that we need to appreciate is that Section 12J works very, very similarly to like a retirement annuity. If you're paying, you're earning money, you're paying taxes, and you're also doing a retirement annuity on the side. At the end, when you submit your taxes, you put a claim in for the retirement annuity that you've been putting off, and it's a standard deduction from your income, and it allows you to get some of the taxes that you pay back. Right, and Section 12J works exactly like that. If you make an investment into a Section 12J venture capital company, which in this case is an Impact Empowerment Ventures, you get a deduction for the amount that you've invested. So if you make a 1 million investment, that gives you R1 million deduction off your income tax. So let's say, for instance, you're earning R1 million. And if you're earning R1 million, your tax liability on that will be roughly about 350,000 Rand. You then make an investment of R1 million into the Section 12J VCC. And what happens is your income is R1 million minus the R1 million that you invested in the Section 12J venture capital company, which means that for tax purposes, your income is zero. That 350,000 Rand that you paid comes back to you. All right, and that's important. Now, just a few things. Individuals, companies, and trusts can all invest, right, in 12J. It's not a surprise to SARS if you do it. It's part of their system, right? The minimum investment is R1 million for companies, individuals, and trusts, and the maximum investment is 2.5 million that you can make. All right, that's for individuals and trusts, and for companies, it's 5 million. To keep the tax benefit, what happens is that SARS transfers that tax to you almost permanently. All right, you don't have to pay that tax back to SARS, except there's one condition: you've got to be invested for a minimum of 5 years. You can't pull your investment before that. After 5 years, you can withdraw your investment and you will pay capital gains tax on what you withdraw. Thank you very much. So so if we can go into the next slide, what happens is that if somebody invests with us, and there's a lot of Section 12J companies around, but if you invest with us, this is what we're trying to do. Next slide, please. Is that we're trying to meet needs of the society. You can see why we're so proud to be associated with this MotorCity venture, because if you have a look at the hierarchy of needs, we target the bottom end of this pyramid of needs, which is basically job creation, food security, housing, education, but we're also promoting business ownership as well in the communities. And it's really how do we become relevant to Africa? And that's the reason why we do it in this way. If we can go to the next slide, to actually extend that, right, we use this acronym called ENRICH, all right, and it stands for Enhanced Risk Controlled Returns. In other words, we're in investments, we're not in something else. So we want to create good returns without taking undue risk, right? And we want this investment to create change and hope, because we are actually meeting the needs of society, and it's a direct benefit of this kind of investing. You can see at the bottom, it's enriching lives through opportunity. That's our byline. We do believe that is economic opportunity is one way to uplift communities out of poverty almost instantly. If we didn't have unemployment, most of the problems that we faced as a country would actually be hugely diminished, if not solved. If we can go to the next slide. So what we're trying to say, it's an investment. So we're not a charity. I know sometimes impact investing has this sort of allure that it's a bit of a charity, but no, we have to start with commercial merit. That's the departure point for our investors. Next to that, the people, the talent standing next to the actual project. And this is why it's one of the reasons we can take on a project like the MotorCity, is because there are excellent people involved as well that will actually manage the project. Then we also look at risk, not to run away from it, but specifically to actually manage and mitigate it. In other words, to use risk as a means of enhancing the prospect of commercial success. And then finally, technology. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, and the fourth industrial revolution is an enabler, particularly for small businesses, to be able to compete with large businesses, which are still stuck in what I call as a 20th century business model, whereas this is the fourth industrial revolution, the 21st century business model, which is where we we believe is actually quite strong. So if we go to the next slide, that's our investment philosophy, right? How do we actually then use the 12J to actually benefit you? And one of the problems which are reflected is that to access this investment, you've got to take R1 million out of your pocket and invest it in the Section 12J, and that means that you get your tax back. So if you get, let's say, 350,000 Rand back, your R1 million investment actually only costs you 350,000 Rand, and that you're exposed for 650,000 Rand. That is the barrier to Section 12J investing. Where do you get that money in the first place? So we've got a smart, structured way of doing it. So Tristan, if you can go to the next slide, what we do is the investor is that instead of taking out R1 million out of your pocket to make the loan or to make the investment happen, we write you a loan for R1 million, and that R1 million loan goes into the investment. And so what you've got is a loan agreement and an investment agreement, and that investment agreement enables you to go to SARS because you've now made that R1 million investment into Section 12J, and that means that you can get your tax back, and that could be anything for an individual between 300,000 to 450,000 Rand tax back. So let's say it's 400,000 that you get back. Your R1 million loan then becomes a 600,000 Rand loan with the 400,000 of tax that you got back being paid there to pay the loan down, right? And SARS requires you to pay the loan down and be at risk for the loan. So we, because you're at risk for the loan, we have to have collateral for the loan. And there's 4 bits of collateral. We write this as a limited collateral loan, right? And that limited collateral loan means that we can't go after you for anything else. And what we do is we ask, what happens? You've created a loan, and on the other side, you've got an investment in the venture capital company worth R1 million. So that matches it out. So the investment then is used as collateral. If we only did that, that means that the investor really hasn't pulled anything out of their pocket. And SARS could argue that they don't have something at risk. So we ask for a securing deposit of 25,000, which is also part of the collateral for the loan, right? And so the refund has also got to be paid down. It's part of the sessions that we ask for. And then when that investment is made into the qualifying company, right, the qualifying company, in this case, MotorCity, would be there to actually pay dividends, and those dividends then are applied to pay down the loan, right? So the loan, we've structured this in a way that it meets SARS requirements, that we pay the loan down and that the investor is at risk. And if something were to happen, right, we would then call in the loan from the investor, and the investor would then hand the collateral to us. In other words, we'd seize the collateral, and that would be it. We can't seize anything more because we've agreed that it's these 4 sessions that are going to make up the security for the loan, and we can't ask for anything more. So if we go to the next slide, what we're trying to do, right, is that we use the asset, the R1 million asset, and the 25,000 Rand securing deposit as collateral for the loan. The refund is also paying down the loan, and then because we're not taking risk at this point on the loan, we write the loan as a 0 interest rate loan, because the interest is payable, but we pass that responsibility of servicing the loan to the actual qualifying company. So if we go to the next slide, we then would pass this onto the qualifying company, and that's where the qualifying company then would actually service the loan and pay the loan back and pay any interest that's required. So in this way, because the actual qualifying company takes responsibility for the loan, we actually shift the risk away from the actual investor, which is quite it makes this quite an elegant solution for people that are investing. Effectively, we are flipping people's taxes, and their net exposure is really their taxes that would be going to SARS. If you don't do the investment, the tax goes to SARS anyway. This is where one can actually have an investment in place, right, to for benefit in the future. So if we go to the next slide, what we're trying to do for the investor is to take what they have supplied in the way of capital, which is their tax refund, and actually grow that over time. In this case, in MotorCity, we're looking for 15% a year. That means you give us 400,000 Rand now. We want to actually, as an investment objective, deliver 800,000 to you in year 5. Obviously, it's subject to the commercial risk of the investment, all right, because this is in the venture capital space. But if this pays off, you should get more than what you contributed in your taxes. But because this is dealing with one's taxes, one needs to appreciate that anything you get back is more than you would have got if you just sat on your hands and paid your taxes without doing this investment. So I'll reiterate, going back to the next slide, is we make a loan. The loan is secured with the actual investment, and the investment enables us to get the taxes back. That starts to get the investment going. That gets passed into the qualifying company, and it's the closest thing you'll get to free investment. So if we go to the last slide, all right, and I don't want, if we go to the last slide, all it is to show you how to access this investment. The last slide, next slide, please. Next slide. And the next slide. Right, if we left, no, it's one back. Right, that's, thank you, Tristan. So how do you access this investment? There's a commitment to invest form that needs to be signed, and the securing deposit gets in place. If you can't pay the full amount, it's got to be done before the 30th of June, because that's when Section 12J ends. We can get a payment plan for that 25,000 as long as some of it comes in before the 30th of June. Our contact details, there's the email address, telephone number, and also the website, which you can also access this investment as well. From my side, thank you very much, Tristan. Over to you.
Thank you. We have